It's the book that's called Infinite Jest. People say it's great, but they're not right. Written by David Foster Wallace. You know you won't finish your first try. No relatability to find. Infinite Jest, tennis and drugs and rambling all night. Infinite Jest. Whether the grate is concave or convex. Infinite Jest. See footnote 304 for more context. Wow. Psoriasis faces in huge rinds of skin. Paralytic hydrocephaly and such and such and such. This is the jest that never ends. Oh yes, this jest is infinite. Well, David Foster Wallace wrote it thinking it was good, and people just went and swallowed it and something so they should. It is the I Hate Infinite Jest podcast, episode number 8, pages 211 to 242. Our guest this week is Dalton Pruitt, a comedian currently living in New York City. He is from Texas. I did not write down his tags. His handles. His handle tags. 1 second. You can find him at his handle tag on Twitter at newdalton69420. Find him on Facebook under Dalton Pruitt. Great episode this week. We are doing pages 211 to 242. A lot of this focuses on Joelle, a.k.a. Madame Psychosis. An interesting, much better than last week. I don't want to apologize for last week, because I don't believe in apologizing, because I am a white dude, and yeah, apologies get you nowhere, they say. Yeah, we were a little harsh on that particular section. I've read ahead enough, I gotta say, I don't doubt David Foster Wallace's, empathy for other people. Just some of those fucking lines in there. Guys, I know the stereotype is that a lot of upper class young men find this book and it speaks to them, but I don't know, I felt it important to point out that, for a guy who has so much humility, supposedly, I know that seems to be everybody's saving grace on David Foster Wallace. Like, oh, he was so self-critical and he's second-guessed himself. But then to just put out there, like, oh yeah, people with high IQs have a harder trouble quitting. Like, you know what? That's probably fucking true. But maybe recognize for a second, again, that, I've known depressives. And one thing with depressives is they tend to exaggerate things a lot. I had an old roommate who we're not on speaking terms right now, which is kind of a bummer. It's not anybody's specific problem. He just, he pulled his head into his turtle shell, and that's where he's comfortable living for right now. But he had such a shame thing, enough to the extent, he was also a big pothead, so that'll come into factor here, where he just had this big shame around sex and himself. And I just remember him one night, just tears in his eyes, saying don't you think that, for me to have this mental illness, that I must have done something really, really bad in a past life to deserve this? By the way, I'm trying to, convey emotion here. I'm not trying to mock him. But, don't you think in a past life I must have done something terrible to feel this pain now? And I responded well, dude, doesn't it say something that somebody who has a natural shame and low feeling about themselves would concoct a way to make it even bigger? Oh, it's not that, it's not that I was born with a small dick. I must have been a serial rapist in a past life. Buddy, maybe you just have a small dick. I'm sorry. And you gotta live with that. I don't know how the fuck I got on that thing. Oh, yeah, but somebody pointed out on Reddit, a Daryl Ductwork pointed out, I have been enjoying the podcast. Hope you get through the whole thing. I had a question. Is it a coincidence that you get people who generally agree with you on each week? That's a good point. I don't think that's that. I'm definitely not trying to get people who agree with me. I mean, for one thing, the guests are usually picked way in advance, and then whatever I read, when I get to them, when I first started, there was definitely like, okay, I hate this book, fuck this book. But I was having friends on who love the book, and I don't want to disrespect them. So, of course, I'm not going to come like, okay, well, this is my guest, Dan Ostrov. Dan, justify why you like this piece of shit. You're a bad person for liking this. Any thoughts? Your rebuttal, please. So, I think I definitely dealt with it with more of like an even hand. And not only that, but for you, the listener, when I started this, I didn't know who the fuck was going to read this thing. I didn't know if this was going to get a big thing of, women who had men rant and rave about David Foster Wallace to them, or I didn't know if it was going to be fans of the book itself. I'm noticing a lot of the listeners are fans of the book itself, and I'm glad you're here. And, again, I try to say, like, the hate of this book, I'm trying to be hyperbolic, but I really don't like it. But the fact that I don't like it, I don't want to, like, hi, welcome to the I Hate Infinite Jest podcast. Here is why you are dumb for loving a thing. No, that's... most of the things I love are dumb. I love professional wrestling. It's dumb as shit. It's indefensibly fucking dumb. And you know who comes off the worst out of professional wrestling fans? Are people who defend it despite its dumb. Despite its dumb. Despite its being dumb. So with a book like this that is so intellectual, you can see where the gap is here. So I'm not trying to... I'm giving my guess the benefit of the doubt, which is why when I have somebody on like Katu or somebody like Hufe, which, by the way, listen to their Lil Saint podcast, Island podcast, when I have them on and it's a particularly rough chapter and I can take off the kid gloves because they're like, oh yeah, I fucking hated this, then yeah, I'm going to get a little... it's kind of like you see when you see like street fight videos where you see two dudes fighting, and then once the guy's down, you can see the people on the edge like, I could probably get in and kick him right now. Now's a good time. Nobody's protecting him. So I want to get in and I want to kick, pages 90 to 121. It's a natural impulse. But yeah, it's something I definitely want to keep an eye on. Again, this week we had Dalton Pruitt on, and He loves the book, but he understands the bad things about it. And yeah, well, you be the judge, because I went in and I was kind of okay with this section. It definitely gave me some new insight on Joel Van Dyne and Madam Psychosis. But this was actually an interesting one, just because that was the bulk of the pages we were working on, was talking about that. So, yeah, in that it was a singular. Next week, even more so. I'm pretty sure our entire section is just Hal and Oren talking for 30 pages, which I've enjoyed very much. It might have something to do with what I like. But, yeah, so we were kind of even-handed this week. Interestingly, I had to take a break in the middle of this because the room I record this in is the hottest room in our house. And our third-floor apartment above a bar in Port Richmond, Philadelphia. In the year of our Lord 2020. Well, in the year of the Tux medicated pad. I almost passed out due to the heat. I mentioned the Tux medicated pad because for not wanting to seem impolite or crass, I told Dalton I was dealing with some lower back spasms. The truth of the matter is, again, Tux medicated pad. I'm wearing one right now because I have a hell of a goddamn hemorrhoid. It has ruined my fucking week. Just imagine a golf ball in your anus at all times. Not even just like fun times, wild Saturday night, golf ball up there, sure. I'm talking work day, like sitting down at your desk, 9 o'clock, 8 hours ahead of you, golf ball in your butt. Really, really not fucking fun. It's bad. So if I sound like I am straining or pained, poor Dalton had to watch me on Zoom, like standing up, bending over, moving around. I had to take a break at one point. But yeah. So if you're wondering, that will be the mystery of why I sound so pained this week. Where the fuck is this? Ooh, so I want everybody to go out and read this. I found very interesting an article written on lareviewofbooks.org. It is written by Julius Taranto. That is Taranto, September 15th, 2018. The title is On Outgrowing David Foster Wallace. I love this article so much. I actually tried to get Julius on just because, well, you know, I'm trying to get some names on here, and I know this is something he wrote several years ago. He said, thank you for the email. He declined to appear, feeling that he said everything he needed to say in that article, but it was very interesting, and I'm finding more and more how people get into this book, how they grow out of it a little, and yeah, really, really worth a listen. So yeah, look up Julius Taranto on Outgrowing David Foster Wallace. Next week, we're going to have the first in our side series. These will be called Footnotes because I'm so goddamn clever. I can't help myself. I am golf ball in the butt clever. That is me. By the way, you may have noticed that I did not get around to recording a new theme song this week because just life comes at you. I'm interviewing for a big job again tomorrow, second interview. So just a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, next week, we'll be doing an episode on This Is Water. And I'm really looking forward to that. So please check that out. Guys, the podcast is growing. We're almost at 2,000 downloads total. At this point, we're getting about 1,000 downloads a week, which is way better than I thought. I don't know if I've said this before. I had a previous podcast, the Magical Misery Tour, where we interviewed the tagline being where funny people discuss life's unfunniest things, where we'd have on comedians and we talk about, sad stuff. And I personally loved it. I thought there was some great art in there. But, people just didn't really listen to it just because our guests were open mic comedians from Philadelphia. So, I mean, unless you know that particular open mic comedian, you don't really have an in to make you want to listen, So the funny thing that I tried to do that podcast thinking it would be a wide berth, and then from there going like, fuck it, I'm going to do this super niche podcast about this cult book that almost nobody finishes, and I'm going to do a takedown of that book for a podcast. And suddenly this is the one that's getting attention? Fuck, man. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm done with the book. I think I might need to come up with, it just needs to be the I Hate This Thing You Love podcast, and I need to come up with more things people love to digest and mock and maybe turn around on. Find the good in it. So we'll see where we go with that. Anyway, what I'm getting at is you could really help me by sharing, liking, subscribing, rate on iTunes. I don't know why the fuck iTunes isn't showing the image. I'm trying. I'm really trying. I don't know what the problem is. But yeah, share. We're on YouTube now. If you want to watch there, I know a lot of people, if you're at work, it's a lot easier to just plug into the old computer itself and have that on the background. I randomly added I had a friend of mine, Joe Garifo. He does claymation. I had him put together a claymation video to one of my stand-up jokes. So that is you can find that at MrJezzicho. That is MrJezzicho on YouTube. And tell me what you think. It ain't David Foster Wallace writing. It's something to do with guns and dildos, and that's all you need to know about that. Anyway, guys, thank you for being here as always. If I fuck up, let me know. I'm very glad that Reddit fella reached out to me because I'm gonna be more cognizant of that in the future. So if there's anything you think could make the podcast better, anything at all. Hey, maybe don't talk about golf balls up your butt. You drive a hard bargain, but I'm open to compromise. Episode 8, Dalton Pruitt, the I Hate Infinite Jest podcast, pages 211. No relatability to find. Infinite Jest, tennis and drugs and rambling all night. Infinite Jest, whether the grate is concave or convex. Infinite Jest. Okay, here we are. I Hate Infinite Jest podcast, number 8. This week, our guest, comedian from New York, Dalton Pruitt. Well, not from New York, in New York. I'm fucking this up already. Dalton Pruitt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm very good. Where are you actually from?
I'm from Texas.
Okay, that's what I thought. I looked up some of your stuff before this, and I remember you saying some stuff about that. So yeah, anything you have to plug before we start?
Yeah, listen to my podcast. It's called The Loud Boys. I do it with comedians Robbie Goodwin and Joe Gorman. So
Okay,
that would be it.
cool. What's that podcast like? Is it just you guys shooting the shit and stuff?
Yeah, just we're just goofing off, just being funny. We'll have a guest on every now and then. I think
Mm-hmm.
we've had some decent guests. We've had Mike Racine on and Zach
Okay.
Amico.
Nice. No, I always envy the guys who can do like the just shooting the shit podcast. I've tried that with my buddy a few times, and it just you need the right amount of you need the right ratio of shooting the shitters on that. Okay, so yeah, what is your reading background? Tell us how you came to read this the P.G.O.A.T, greatest book of all time here.
Well, I mean, I have an English degree. Like I studied literature in college. With I guess my concentration is in creative writing, but yeah, like I've always enjoyed I enjoyed literature enough to pay like 40 grand to to study it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I was always one of those like um lonely kids who just would always go to the library and check out, big books that were ahead of what I should have been reading at the time.
Mm.
And so like with this book, I mean, like the reputation this book has. I can't remember how I first heard. I think you know what I do remember how I first heard about it. I saw some interview with like it was an interview with Stephen King where they were asking him like, "What are you reading?" And he mentioned this book, he mentioned Infinite Jest, and I was like, I've never even heard of that, and so I looked it up, and then I started following all the hate that it gets online and the mythology surrounding it, how it's this insanely difficult book and no one can finish it, and every bro has it in his apartment, but he's never read it. And I was like, I'll buy it. It's like $14 on Amazon, so I bought it.
It is an
And
enticing pitch that the world gives it. I mean, hard to read, equally loved and hated.
yeah, and there's also no good synopsis for it. Like anything you read,
Right.
where they like any plot summary you read, nobody's able to really tell you what this book's about.
It's kind of impossible to spoil.
Yeah, and so it is just like this big mystery that you have to like crack open and kind of figure out for yourself.
Mm.
So I can't remember how old I was. I'm 27 now. I think I was like 22 or 23 when I read it.
Okay. See, that's interesting because that was the age I was at when I first tried to read it. And one of the things that's come up a few times with people on this podcast, that the age you read it seems to have a big determining factor on how much it impacts you. Like the people I've spoken to who have just loved this book the most have read it around like I think 17, 18, 19.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the time that I read, because like I guess at its core, if I was to try and like boil down what this book is really about, I mean, it is just about loneliness and addiction. And so I was in college at the time, and I was certainly I was dealing with that, especially like addiction. Especially, I had like a big drinking problem. And so yeah, I mean, it did resonate with me. Like it took me like 6 months to read. And it made me feel kind of more lonely in a way, but now that I'm in this very small club of people that finished it. But yeah, I mean, it did have kind of an effect on me in the way I think about like addiction and I don't know, like the human condition. There's a lot of deep stuff in the book, and it's hard to like get to all of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, could you actually elaborate on that a little bit? Like how Like how did it change? Like how did you feel about addiction before versus like after? Just because my specific experience with this book is that it would be fine if I just didn't like it. And there are parts that now that I'm getting through it, there are parts of it I like. It's building up. My beef with it has always been just I didn't get it, and the fact that other people seem to get, it's very frustrating when like two people are looking at the same painting and one person is having a life-changing experience and then the other guy's looking at him like, why am I not getting what you are getting? That's pretty much the entire purpose of this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it's been years since I've read it, so but what I remember is like just the way it handles the subject of addiction. Because like with any movie you watch where like somebody goes to like an AA program or even in like an actual program, it's like so serious and so melodramatic, and it's like this all or nothing thing, like with those kinds of things. And I think like this book really, it does find like the humanity in addiction. Okay. And just being lonely. And it I don't know. I think it encapsulates what that is like in a way that I haven't seen in anything else. Just how isolating it can be to deal with something like addiction.
Okay. But you said at the same time it made you feel more lonely. Why
well, exactly because the did you see the movie? Did you see that
End of the Tour?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. Yeah.
It's a bad movie. I did not enjoy it, but there is a line in it where David Foster Wallace, played by Jason Segel, he says something where he's like, you would have to be really lonely to read a 1,200 page book. Like he mentions just how lonely even the act of reading this book is. I do remember feeling that way, where it's like I was spending so much of my time like I couldn't wait to just get home and like keep reading this. I was kind of addicted to the book itself when I read it. And it's like an isolating experience to invest so much of yourself into this big book and no one else has read it. Like you try to talk to people about it and they're like, yeah, I fucking hate that, but I'm never going to read that.
See, it's funny to hear that from the side of people who love the book, just because my experience has been like people, by and large, my peer group just hasn't even read it or attempted to read it. Like women complaining about men who recommend it is probably like the single biggest chunk of like the pie chart when it comes to this book for me. But at the same time, I'm enjoying just having anybody, because I really, the truth of the matter is my friends are not readers much at all. No. So even this kind of discussion is great. Like you mentioned that I was very much a lonely boy reader as well. I remember in third grade, my teacher, Mr. Liss, that fucking asshole, he actually called home and complained to my parents that I was reading too much during recess.
Nice.
Yeah. He should be out there running around, and instead he's reading his Animorphs and Goosebumps and shit. And I also once watched that teacher knead a kid in the face and got away with it. So clearly we shouldn't be taking his advice on anything. But
hell yeah. Where'd you go to school? That sounds like the South.
It was the South Jersey. Nah.
Oh, okay.
Nah, it was he knew he made a mistake immediately when the kid burst into tears. He like imagine somebody kicking a dog and then picking it up, feeling bad, and trying to get the dog out of the room before anyone could react to it. That's pretty much what it was.
Nice.
Just very, very lower working class place. Like nobody was gonna care anyway.
Okay.
But, it's funny you mentioned, and I didn't expect to get into this at all, but I do miss the fact that when it comes to like big time TV and the extended Marvel universe right now, that I feel like the term nerd culture has gotten a little bit too big because in modern nerd, I know a lot of my close friends who I say don't really read fall into modern nerd culture, but none of them fit that classic lonely boy like reading a book by themselves anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, I remember when I was a teenager, and like, for example, like when the show Doctor Who started coming back on,
Uh-huh.
that was something nobody watched. Like that you would be embarrassed, and I watched it, but it was like embarrassing. And then like something happened. I guess it was Chris Hardwick that changed everything, because then like all of this stuff became like popular, and then but that doesn't make you feel any less lonely. Now you're just like, well, why am I still not fitting in?
Right. It's like there's all these other people claim to have the same exact problems as me, and yet we still don't like each other somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird how like all of the stuff that used to be kind of like niche or fringe is now such a part of the mainstream that even I'm sick of it. Like I can't watch another Marvel movie.
There's something about superhero movies in general that really like. All right, so here is my thing getting into Infinite Jest is my issue with it is not that it's pretentious. I know a lot of people like, oh, you hate it just because it's kind of pretentious. I like a lot of pretentious shit.
Sure.
But fuck, I actually I lost my thought, and I'm going to pause for a second because it was a good one.
Okay.
I like a lot of like dramatic films, and I just said pretentious. I'm going to mention The Godfather, which is not exactly pretentious, but I like, Scorsese films and like real art house film shit. And it does kind of bother me that our like movies like The Godfather and like Cool Hand Luke, those used to be like summer blockbusters. But now our generation, we're like so stunted that we can't handle drama unless it's like, oh, it can't be this, this Italian American family, how do you keep your humanity while struggling to meet it in the new world? Only now it's, oh, well, how is this mega billionaire with a mech suit going to save his humanity? Like they need to dress it up and like cotton candyify up drama just to get people to eat it. And they love it, but it's a little like if they made The Godfather today, it would have to be like a superhero allegory somehow. And that bothers me a lot.
Well, I mean, The Irishman did come out earlier this year, or I guess at the end of 2019. And that did not go well. So I don't know. Maybe we're done with drama. Maybe it's over.
Maybe. Oh, well, I guess Marvel will just have to hold on to drama from now on. I'll be fine with that.
I mean, I don't know what happened. I think people do. I mean, I enjoy spectacle. Like I think just the Marvel movies are so and a lot of that, like what you would classify as like nerd stuff, is just so mindless and cookie cutter in a way that I just can't do anymore. But I mean, I'll watch John Wick all day, so I'm a hypocrite.
Oh yeah, no. Everybody has their favorite fast food, Some people are happy with McDonald's, and some people want to pretend they're above everybody else because they like In-N-Out Burger, but it's still garbage at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into the breakdown here. So, those reading along, this is part 8. We're on pages 211 to 242. I got to be honest, I miss reading anything else other than this book just because I have to read and summarize everything. I really don't have time for anything else. But
yeah,
there's still some good shit happening here. All right, page 211. We meet Pemulus talking to Hal and Axford about DMZ, a powerful fungal hallucinogenic, a fungus that grows from other fungus. The Yale of the Ivy League of acid. There's a lot of qualifiers that he likes here. If acid itself took acid. Not bad. Oh, so potent that LSD 25 was prescribed to come down from DMZ. Used for MK Ultra mind control, turns guns into hydrangeas and enemies into blood relatives. Studies stopped when it was deemed far too potent. You mentioned addiction stuff back there. Have you messed around with hallucinogens at all?
Yeah, for sure. I actually just took mushrooms last week.
Oh yeah? How was it?
It was nice. I mean, the person I was with, there was a lot of tension between us. It so it is like that set and setting thing, but yeah, I still managed to pull through.
So wait, did you take mushrooms together as kind of like a conflict resolution scenario?
No.
Oh,
It's way too complicated to
okay,
describe what's
okay,
been
okay.
going on with this person. But it ended up just being one of those things where she microdosed and I just ended up dosing.
Hmm.
I kept taking like more and more nibbles on them, and then I was like, damn it, this is a full dose. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I did mushrooms last week. I've done them a handful of other times. I've taken pretty big hits of acid too. I mean, last
Yeah.
summer, me and my buddy, we each took like 2.5 hits of acid and just went and walked around Manhattan. So
That sounds like a nightmare. Okay, I haven't. I haven't. I can't even really do pot just because my brain doesn't process it right. But I ask that because I know this is something that's going to be big in the book, and I'm wondering if this is something like I would probably understand better had I done hallucinogens, because I know this is going to be a major plot point.
yeah, I mean, the thing about hallucinogens, because the way the book describes this particular drug, uh, I've never taken anything that like knocks me on my ass like this. It really, because like pot actually is the worst of them for me. I can't really smoke it, but like with
Yeah.
acid or mushrooms, I find them to be like pretty pleasant. Like it definitely alters the way you perceive everything around you, but uh it's not like all that like fear and loathing stuff. Like it doesn't completely change everything.
Mhm.
It just shifts the way you look at the world.
See, after seeing, I don't know if you saw Midsummer, but I know that was kind of applauded by people
That
who
is, yes, that is the most accurate depiction of mushrooms I've ever seen. That
Okay.
really nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. See, because that one makes me kind of want to try it, which is funny. The Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, like, oh, everything's wacky, but the one where you start, the depiction where you start seeing dead relatives, I go like, oh, that doesn't look that bad.
The stuff in Midsummer where like the flowers are just kind of like breathing and like
Uh
opening and closing, like that is, yes, that guy got it. That is as close as I've seen a movie get to what that experience is like.
Okay. Listener out there, go watch Midsummer. Great movie. Okay. So Hal wants to, not Hal, Pemulus wants to try out the DMZ on Hal in Oxford before he does anything with it, before he sells it. He's trying to decide whether to sell them to high octane thrill seekers or scientists who want to measure it, or the chaos route of just dosing some people. Pemulus talks about some literature he found on it that's been described as if acid took acid, that some convict was shot with a superdose and lost his mind. I actually like this quote, as in the DMZ picked up his mind, put it somewhere else, and then forgot where they left it. Nice. Um, He considers everybody. Oh, okay. He tries to do. Is that true in real life where you kind of like block out a nice chunk of time for this? Like Pemulus here determines they'll need 36 hours to really responsibly get the full hit out of this.
Yeah, you do need, you're gonna need some time set aside
Right.
to like go through the trip, because it's like I know people that can take psychedelics and just go about their day. Um, but if you're like actually tripping, like if you're trying to have like an experience, you do need
Mm.
like with acid, I mean like 12 hours probably at
You
least.
literally need to plan it like a day trip.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. They consider doing it after the big inter academy thing where Enfield kids play other academies for a fundraiser of some sort. November 20th, 21st is being the designated time. There's a footnote on Hal once being considered ADD, later corrected as having an almost obsessive level of interest and effort, as if Hal was obsessed with impressing some people, though no expectations had ever been put on him in this regard. That Hal swallowed up dictionaries and encyclopedias whole, and regurgitating them became a wonder wellspring of approval from authority figures. This despite that his authority figures never expected this of him. I can relate to this. I remember I read the dictionary as a young boy, and nobody thought it was a good idea. Nobody applauded me
No.
for that. I think my dad specifically tried to teach me some football tactics while I was doing that. So, I don't know. Did you ever have anything like that where you were like obsessively trying to? Well, let me ask you this: what character do you identify with most in Infinite Jest?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I guess equal parts Hal and Dawn, because Hal is like the cut off from the world. He can't really talk to anybody. He struggles with like social interactions. But then Dawn is also like an addict, and like in recovery. So I identify with like both of those traits.
So I'm still looking forward to again, I haven't read that far ahead. So where I'm at now, they keep like teasing Gately, and I know he's going to become a bigger thing, and I'm looking forward to it because everybody keeps telling me like last week's episode, I really did not enjoy the chapter, particularly where he was talking about the rehab clinic. But people keep telling me like just get to the Don Gately parts. You'll see he's like the hero of the novel.
So this is your first time reading the book?
The first time I read up until page like 400, and I just so was not I didn't enjoy any step of the way. So eventually I was just like, all right, why the fuck am I doing this to myself? So
right, yeah, I get that.
So yeah, this is my first time reading it all the way through after arguing about it for years with people.
I mean, I understand the hate it gets. Like, I never try to defend this book. I'm like, I just tell people like I enjoyed it, but I also understand why people would hate it. Like, it's
right. Well, that's what I'm finding out with this. A lot of the people who listen to the podcast are people who love the book. I think it's one of those things where even if you have a different disagreement on a different outlook on something, if you still love something obsessively, you'll still like listening to it being made fun of, as long as it's in a just of obsessive detail as you love it.
Yeah. So we're supposed to be making fun of the book on this podcast?
No, we don't have to make fun of it. We're just,
we can't, because it's like there are things about it that are like just tedious and pretentious for sure.
Right. And well, there's also stuff about the fan base. I mean, I know I had a thing the other day where it seems like I hate the fact that anytime like over entertainment happens, people have to go like, oh, see, it's like Infinite Jest predicted this. Like, yeah, we also, we went from looking at radios in the 1940s to like, I hate that people try to put that as like, oh, he really predicted the future. Like, no, he saw a thing that had been trending upward for 70 years and said, oh yeah, that'll go a little bit farther. Like, I don't think
I am impressed at how well he just understands people. Like that whole section where he pretty much describes FaceTime and why no one wanted to use it. Like, even now, like, we're on Zoom, no one enjoys Zoom.
Right.
Yeah, and he breaks down like why people would not like this and why they had to like wear masks, and then they just stopped using it altogether. I was like, not only did he predict like FaceTime, but he also predicted the way people would respond to that technology.
Oh yeah, no, believe me, I can tell you right now, there are people who are invested in Zoom who are already trying to figure the exact moment they can pull their money out, because this entire product is going down the shitter as soon as people can see each other in person again.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's just kind of making do. Okay, next chunk, page 219 to 223. We meet Joelle Van Dyne for the first time. She will be revealed to us as Madame Psychosis. She is thinking of the best part of the party, that invisible moment when it begins to end. She's planning on killing herself. Quote here: the hours before suicide are usually an interval of enormous deceit and self-involvement. So yeah, I actually wanted to talk about something.
He's leaving a lot of clues.
Yeah.
He's dropping some breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Reed's kind of bad. Like, you gotta. So the thing I wanted to talk about here is I had a friend kill himself a few years ago, and I have thought like meticulously like what their last hours must have been like. Really heartbreaking thing. He had texted my good friend Joey like the night he killed himself, asking, "Hey, buddy, what are you up to? Can we hang out?" He's like, "Oh, we're taking my mom out for her birthday. I'll hit you up tomorrow." And obviously, tomorrow never came. Yeah.
Damn, dude.
All right, I'll go a little further. I'll leave the really fucked up part of that story. So this guy lived by himself. He hung himself. Wasn't found for 2 weeks. They found him 2 weeks later, and all I have to say was his dog was with him, and his dog was just healthy. So,
damn, dude.
Yeah, his dog kind of ate him a little bit. That's, God, suicide is fucked up. Anyway, let's keep going. The party is for Molly Notkin, whom Joelle met in a doctoral program, Orals in Film and Film Cartridge Theory. The party is to celebrate her graduation from the program. Molly is obsessed with a man who believes men only have a limited number of erections in a lifetime, and so is agonized with guilt when he wastes them on trivial arousals. Apparently, that's a real thing. I read that there are some people who believe that, like, you only get, like, a certain amount of ejaculations in your lifetime, and that's why masturbation is, like, the worst thing in the world.
I mean, that's technically true. I mean, because it's like you're going to die one day, so you're done coming after that.
Well, eventually, yeah. I mean,
on a long enough timeline, you're done having boners.
Yeah. At a certain point, we use up our best comes. But no, like, there's, like, cultures that apparently believe, like a ticker. Like, you get 2,000, like, there goes one. So if you use up all 2,000 orgasms by the time you're 30, like, that's just it.
I've heard that. I don't know if there's any science to back that up, but I've definitely heard about this.
It sounds like a fun idea for a short movie.
I mean, that's pretty much what NoFap is. Like, all those guys who are like, like my energy, I can't just waste my body's spiritual energy.
So, I mean, well, yeah, like that old boxer thing. Like, no, you can't masturbate or have sex before a fight. It makes you weak in the knees.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've used up all of mine yet, so I think I'm okay.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Joelle watches the party fade out as she pictures her life and impending death passing before her like a 16mm movie. Again, these are my notes as I type them. So I put here, apparently she knew Oren, as we find out. Her and Oren were lovers for quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
One thing I found very uncomfortable about this chapter, this chapter could also be renamed One Note Black Characters Harass Madam Psychosis as she walks around. There's a bunch of, like, some black men call her bitch and ask where the wedding's at because she's wearing her veil.
Oh my God, dude. That's the most embarrassing thing about this book is the way he writes black characters. It's just, that's humiliating. Like the sections where anytime a black person talks is just cartoonish.
Oh yeah. No, every time a black person wanders onto the literary scene, it's where you gonna be going? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have even done that.
Hell yeah, dude. No, keep going. Do it.
If I do it just right, they can't get mad at me.
Did you ever read? He wrote an essay about that, like pretty much just being racist. I forget the name of the essay, like what it was called, but it was about the difference between like standard written English and
was it about how black guys walk like this? But
it kind of is.
Honkies. Okay.
It kind of actually is. It's about how like black people have. He goes, it's valid the way that black people speak, but on the written word, English. He pretty much makes the argument that like English is inherently a white man's language, and if any of my students turn in a paper that have any like AAVE in it where they would write the way they would speak, he will like fail the like mark it red and fail them for it.
See, I've heard him as a teacher was particularly not cool. Like he would like humiliate his students by like, and obviously these were a lot of kids who like loved his work, who were writing in his writing class.
That's the weird thing about like academia and especially like the world of like literature, because I experienced that when I was in college. It's like so many of your professors are just like, it's like a placeholder while they're working on their book.
Yeah.
So it's like, could you imagine like being in a college class and then later realizing that your professor was the guy that wrote Infinite Jest? Like it.
Yeah. Nah, that's, I know. Well, we know that in comedy quite a bit, that one of the most infuriating things doing comedy is people who've been doing it less long than me. And then you see they're teaching a stand-up class.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of want to be the one to shake them like, you shouldn't even be doing stand-up. Why do you think you can teach somebody?
That's way worse, though. Like a stand-up class is a complete scam. I mean, at least I understand teaching a writing class, like when an actual writer teaches a writing class. But the people that teach stand-up classes usually never, they haven't succeeded in anything.
Exactly. Yeah. What do I have here? Okay, we get a brief synopsis on works written by Helen Steepley. She comes up more in the next chapter. We've obviously met Steepley and Moraith. She does the same thing as the. Oh, wait a sec. I might have just put something together right now. Was Joelle the person we met who was obsessing over the marijuana order earlier in the book?
No, that was Ederdy? I forget his name.
Erdity, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because they have the same issue of occasionally throwing away all drug paraphernalia because that is just as good as getting clean in the moment.
Yeah, I've been there, dude. I've poured out beer and then bought it again.
Yep. That big cathartic moment where you like imagine the soundtrack behind you. You're almost imagining like, I'll probably win a Golden Globe for what I'm doing right now. This is a big performative thing.
Yeah.
Shit. All right, but I really hate to do this to you. It's really hot in this room. I got to go grab some water real quick. I'll be right back. Okay?
Yeah, no worries, man.
Okay. Sorry about that, Matt. Real talk. It is sweltering in this room, and I felt like I was going to pass out for a second there. So
no, you're good. Where are you? I don't even know where you live.
Oh, I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's it. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask where you were in New York.
Oh yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Bushwick.
Okay. Yeah, because you're one of those. So I started this podcast thinking like, oh, I have a bunch of friends who like this book, and then within 3 episodes, I ran out of people I knew. So I pretty much went back to every K.2 King thread where she mentioned Infinite Jest, and that's where I found you on it.
Yeah.
But okay, we have it revealed here that Joelle is the star of the entertainment Infinite Jest. That she spent 16 months with James Incandenza filming something, nobody knew what. In the footnote, it's mentioned there's a lot of the thing they did with Moraith and Steepley, where it was like, are they a double or triple agent, or did they know, or were they pretending to know? So we have here, Oren left the family, possibly because Joelle and James were lovers. Footnote shows he knew they weren't lovers, but his mother Avril didn't know they weren't. The whole back and forth kind of thing here. But this is where we get the first real look at what the entertainment is, where Joelle says she was being shot through a wobbly lens, maternally saying, I'm so sorry, so terribly sorry, over and over again. And that was the last thing they shot together, and himself ordered the cartridge buried with him in his casket, and he left Joelle an absurd annuity that enabled her drug use, further giving the impression they'd been lovers.
So at this point, I forget where the actual footnote is, but like, have you gotten to the filmography section?
Yes, we got that a little bit earlier.
Okay, yeah. So apparently there were like 3 or 4 Infinite Jests that he made, and then the entertainment, I guess, is the completed product, the finished product of the titular Infinite Jest that. Which is funny, like the actual plot of this book it's just a spooky videotape that's like killing people. Yeah, it is I wonder if this is I think this came out around the same time as like the original book, The Ring. I don't know.
Oh, I actually didn't know the original The Ring had started as a book. I knew it started as like a Japanese horror movie, but
I believe it was a book first. It was like a trilogy.
You talk. I'm actually going to look that up real quick.
Yeah, it's like a trilogy, and I think it ends with the reveal that it's actually a simulation. And they, it's like some crazy cyberpunk story, actually. But yeah, it is like the same idea as The Ring, where it's like there's this tape that people are watching that's killing them.
And then, you know, it's very, very possible because the Ring novel came out in 1991.
Oh,
so that's very possible.
Some sticky fingers here.
That's right. Yeah, maybe that anxiety was well placed. That people thought he was a failure. I don't know.
Well, what is that quote? Like, good artists borrow, great artists steal. So it's like, you know, this is a great artist. He just stole the plot of The Ring.
Yeah. Okay. Joelle arrives at Molly Notkin's party. Molly is dressed like Karl Marx as her final oral exam involved reviewing a Marx film cartridge from the perspective of Marx himself. Not a terrible idea. We find out that she was the young Oren's lover for 2 years. I have this listed as a note, but I'm not sure if this is accurate. Was she unveiled in the entertainment?
I don't believe so. Or maybe she was. I don't know, because
given how supposedly pretty she is, I mean that would lend itself to the hypnotic aspect of it.
I think the book leads you to believe that maybe it's her that is the thing that's killing people. I don't know though. It's kind of ambiguous.
Well, it does seem to be something about her in particular, because I mean, I was very harsh last week on just the concept of the Madame Psychosis radio show, but I mean, if it is something hypnotic about this person in general, like I guess that's something I can buy into.
Yeah, apparently she's just so pretty that people go crazy, which, hey man, I've been there. I've met women like that.
You know, that's actually something I think about from time to time, because just I'll say this quietly because my girlfriend's in the next room, but like when you're just walking around and like you see like an attractive woman and then you look away, but then you find it's like you have the initial look and then the look away and then the sly look, like how am I going to continue looking without being noticed? And just realizing that, like, as a man, like, oh, I haven't had that feeling for once, even in my life, of somebody looking at me like that.
No. The way he writes this character, it does just go to show that he, like a lot of men, really had issues with women.
Yeah.
Like to write a character where it's like her entire character arc is she's too pretty.
Right.
And so he's basically saying like, yeah, women have too much power over us because of how beautiful they are. It makes me so mad.
See, this is a good part of the reason I'm glad. I had my cousin on a few weeks ago, who's like a great writer, and he, not a great writer, but he's like a big literary guy. And he flat out said, like, if I had read this book when I was 17, I would have been dangerous, because it would have appealed to all my most self-pitying aspects of myself. Like, girls don't like me and that makes girls bad. I mean, I'm surprised. Is there like a particular incel community? Have the incels found this book yet?
I don't know. I mean, maybe they're too angry to read.
Maybe.
I don't know. Because this is a very incel book. I mean, that would be my main criticism of it. Is it's like the book does have like a lot of anger towards women and like not being able to get laid.
See, that is actually a hot take I've tried to put out there before. Not that I am on the side of incels at all, but like I do kind of feel, as bad as they are, I do kind of feel bad for them. Because I mean,
of course. I sympathize. I mean, it's like, yeah, when somebody drives a van through a crowd of people, that's bad. I can't like get, but it's like if somebody's like, if someone's like really lonely and doesn't know how to express themselves and doesn't know how to just like tell other people like, hey, I'm just like, I'm hurting, right. Which is kind of actually, that's what this book is about. So maybe it is. Maybe I'm flipped, and this is a good commentary on all that. I don't know, But it's like, yeah, I get it. It's like if you're like an angry, lonely dude and you have no idea how to express your emotions and just tell other people like what it is that's like bothering you, then that's like a really isolating experience, and it
Yeah,
hurts.
it's bad. Like one of the things I've brought up a few times in comedy, and this is so we talked about reading this thing at the right time. I read a book at the wrong time, and that would be Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged.
Oh fuck, dude.
Yeah, I've been there and back, thank God. But I read that when I was like 16, 17. And yeah, turned me into a bit of a fucking asshole for a few years there that, thankfully I just happened to mature out of. But
Did you ever get really into Rush?
I did not. Here's the fucked up thing. I love prog metal. I have a fucking Dream Theater tattoo on my wrist.
Oh Jesus.
But I never specifically got into. Here's the thing when it comes to like prog rock, where it's so cheap. It lands on like a razor's edge of cheesiness, where it can either be just a little less cheesy and I can like swallow it and it's really good, or it gets a little too cheesy. And one of the things that's a little too cheesy that Rush and Dream Theater both did is like they both made concept albums where it's like first draft bullshit, like, hey, how about this for an idea? How about a world where music is illegal? Like,
yeah,
no,
yeah, dude, that rocks.
But yeah, but it's also it's the first draft idea, and it never works well.
Like, no, I mean, dude, I've listened to 2112 probably 100 times, so yeah. I get that it's cheesy, but I love it.
Oh, but, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, they have like several songs about Ayn Rand, and
right, they based it off Anthem, I believe, the book Anthem.
Yeah, and I was like really into Rush in high school, and I did end up reading. I think I tried to read Atlas Shrugged, and I was like, this is boring.
It is.
But then I picked up Anthem, that's a crisp 150 pages right there.
Yep.
So I read that, and I was like, well, I don't agree with this.
Oh, but what I was going to say before is one of the things that's come up in comedy a few times is that every time one of these school shootings happening, they always come up with there's always people you see a lot on social media like, we need to expand, like we need to be more careful with people who are dealing with severe mental issues, and we really need to be more open and discussing people with mental health issues. And then these same people, I see them attacking like people with mental issues all the time because like they don't know how to talk to a girl, or they say some bullshit on social media. And it's like, they're just, the sad truth is a lot of mental illness makes you a really annoying fucking person.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to accept that as a society. I don't know. I think so much of the alt-right are just guys who need a hug.
Yeah, I've said that. I mean, yeah, especially with all that incel stuff, it's just like, you can't like, I don't understand how you could get mad at somebody just because they haven't gotten laid. I mean, their response to that, yes, you could get mad if they become like an angry, bitter person, but to like just blindly label anyone who's dealing with like mental health issues that's stopping them from like properly socializing, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. There's like no real consistency with that kind of thing, because it's like they say they want better mental health care, but then they just make fun of all of these guys. So
well, I think that might be all right. I'm going to come off a little edgelord here. I'm going to have a hot take. I feel women and men deal with mental health very, very differently. And a lot, and when they're saying we need more acceptance for mental health issues, that's a lot of women talking about women's mental health issues, because their mental health issues, like worst case scenario, their ex is going to file a restraining order against them. They're not going to be the guy, like, going on fucking 4chan and like posting Pepe the Frog and swastikas and shit like that.
Yeah. Well, it's just not, I don't know. I'm not a woman, but I imagine it's still not as lonely for a woman, even if she's dealing with like mental health stuff. Because if you're a woman, especially if you're like just moderately attractive, people still like gravitate towards you. But if you're just like a sad, lonely dude, it's not like you're going to have people in your orbit. You're just going to be alone.
No, it's a fucking wasteland. And not to mention, then you have so I have a cousin who is like an undeclared incel, Really, he's an incel that's just not that into the internet. That's
he hadn't
all
picked his major yet. He was.
Yeah. I'm thinking of double majoring in inceldom and white privilege. Let's see, but like his thing is that he tries to make it like, oh well, my standards are just too high. Like if I was to get with a girl, and this is something people shit on with incels, like, oh, they only want beautiful women around them. Like, no. They're terrified of women, so they are putting their goalposts so high that they never have to make the attempt and they never have to fail. Like, that is heartbreakingly tragic.
That's the move. That's the move, dude. That's what you do.
That's right.
You can't fail if you never try. So that's great.
Oh God. Okay, let's get back into this. Okay, 90 days after the completion of filming, James Incandenza killed himself by breaking the front of a microwave, sticking his head in, and turning it on. We get a detailed thing in the next chapter. That's pretty fucking brutal. Party discussion. There's a woman admiring loudly her own tits in the mirror, and the crowd agrees. See? Right there, they're propping up a woman's mental issues. Oh, don't my tits look great in the mirror? Yes, she does. Let's just keep going. They mention in the universe there's been a reboot of the Brady Bunch some decades later, and much like the variety show, they recast Jan. I don't know if the listener has ever seen the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. Again, much like prog music, it's another thing from the 70s that's horribly cheesy, and I will watch all fucking day long. Have you ever seen the Brady Bunch Variety Hour?
No, I've never seen it.
It is... They made a musical variety show out of a bunch of people who couldn't sing or dance.
Okay.
It's beautiful. But in this new version in the Infinite Jest universe, Jan Brady is played by a middle-aged black woman, which...
Damn, he called it. He nailed it, dude.
That's right. We need more black Bradys. We need a black Partridge family.
Wow.
They made a black Honeymooners. I take it back. He is the prophet of our times. Oh, God, I have the note here. What do you think of, like, the extensive glossary of just big words he throws in this? Like, right here we have a priori, scopophiliacal, and suprasubliminal. Like, what do you think about all that?
That's another thing where it's like, because I read one of his essays where he talks about, like, how he does read the dictionary and shit like that. It just is him just showing the reader that he's read a diction, like he's just knows a lot of words. Yeah, because this is a very like maximalist book. Like he putting words like that in a book, I don't know. I do think there are better writers out there. Like I think like it's more rewarding as a reader if you could say less.
Right.
Like
But the thing I've been saying about this book is it's pissing me off because there's a great 350-page book in this 1,100-page book. And it just frustrates me. Like, I remember when I was talking about getting into this, I had somebody actually said, like, oh, the book's actually more enjoyable if you have a dictionary ready at all times. Like, what part of that sounds fucking enjoyable to you?
That sounds awful.
Like...
I do like the more I read, I do find myself more like appreciating minimalism versus this kind of thing. This is like prog rock. This is just like stuffing as much as possible into what you're creating, and it is kind of cheesy. Like using these big silver dollar words. It's just it's like bragging. It's like those words, cool. Are they adding anything to the story? I don't know.
I don't know. I might start looking at this book as prog rock now. I mean, one paragraph that goes on 5 pages might be like the polyrhythm or like the 9/8 time signature of the literary world.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I do look. My favorite band is the Mars Volta, so like I do love that kind of shit.
Yes. Okay.
Hell yeah, dude.
Dude, this world goes back to normal. We gotta hang out. I'm a bigger At the Drive-In fan just because I found them first, but obviously they're entirely different fucking animals.
Yeah, well, I found Mars Volta first because when I was in high school, they were the band that was like still together.
Okay, see, I think you're a little younger than me. I found But both the band Refused and At the Drive-In, I got in literally like seconds before they broke up.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
but the only one of those two bands I've actually seen live is At the Drive-In, because they got back together recently, and I saw them like 3 years ago, and that fucking rocks.
One of my greatest concert going moments of my life will be in the pit for One Armed Scissor when that fucking song kicks in.
Yeah, dude.
Which,
Yeah,
like,
I was getting tossed around.
God, the last few years of my life, I hadn't been in a mosh pit in like 10 years, and now every concert I go to, I end up in one, and it feels so good. It feels terrible.
It feels
after,
great.
but
Yeah, before the world ended, I just saw Mr. Bungle.
you, oh my God. Okay, we're so I don't know if you know this. We're destined to be best friends. I can't. God, I can't. How was Mr. Bungle? I can't. I was so fucking mad. I couldn't go.
It was incredible. It was great. I mean, did you see like what they were performing?
Yeah, they were doing Raging Wrath the Easter Bunny, right?
Yeah, so I went in hoping they would play something from one of the albums.
Mm-hmm.
They never did, but I still was like, this is the best show ever. Like, it was just a pure thrash, like, metal show. And it wasn't the full Mr. Bungle lineup. It was Mike.
Right, they put Scotty in there.
Yeah, so it's like they have like the core three. They have Mike, Trevor,
Trey and Trey.
Trey, yeah. And then it was Scotty in on rhythm guitar and Dave Lombardo on drums. But I still fucking loved it, dude. It was incredible.
See, I've actually thought of Infinite Jest. The way some people talk about Infinite Jest, I've actually thought of Mr. Bungle a few times, because one of the things, like, I refer to Mr. Bungle's second big label, Disco Volant, as like it's so genius it's almost unlistenable.
Yeah, I think that might be my favorite album of theirs, but it's also the hardest to listen to.
Right.
But I love all the stuff that they're doing on that album.
Right. And I've read people describe them live, like back in the day, like they were a band, like you were going to get some moments of like genius, but they were going to make you fucking work for it. Like, because they might come out and they might do Tony Bennett covers for a half hour, like Tony Bennett as performed by like a noise rock group. And then just like but then that's like the band itself, where it's just, they have such an up and down that like it gets so discordant. And then when it comes back together, it's like, holy shit, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I want this book to be like that, because the way people talk about this book is the way I talk about Mr. Bungle.
Yeah, so this book is kind of like that. The book, you start weaving in and out of all of this, like all the footnotes and all this horse shit, the big silver dollar words, but then it does come together at the end.
Again, my biggest hope is somehow throughout the entire narrative arc of me doing this podcast, as I end up loving this book at the end. That would be the ultimate ending.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy, like, if you stick through it, because I mean, everybody says like it does take about 500 or 600 pages to like really get into it, which is, that's a tall order, but yeah, I mean, it does like once you cross that hump, it is pretty enjoyable.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's just knock this out. We got a brief thing about the Great Convexity Concavity, the seeded areas of the Northeast U.S. that were relinquished to Canada but are filled with toxic dump materials. There are fans on both borders to keep the orders out. The curve looks convex from the U.S. side and concave from the Canadian side. So pretty much there's an infinite argument over whether to call it the Great Convexity or Concavity. We go back. It's so weird how they do this. Like, this entire chapter we're discussing is all about Joel, and then we'll just like dip out for little shit here and there.
Yeah, so that is one of the cool things about the book, is within all of these like deeply human stories that are happening, the world around them is like kind of this almost post-apocalyptic America.
Mm-hmm.
And not post-apocalyptic, but more dystopic than the America that existed when the book was published. And so it does dip out of these like human stories to tell you like, so here's what the country looks like now, where, you know, they've annexed part of Canada or something. And
oh God, I still don't know what the acronym stands for, but like the Joint Mega Union of Mexico, Canada, and America. It's like
ONAN. Yeah,
ONAN.
I forget what the actual. I think maybe this section, there's a page that at least breaks down the calendar that they're using. I don't know if they tell
Right.
you in this part what that acronym stands for.
No, I think that's a different part, but I know, yeah, somewhere in here they have that might actually be the first revelation that the first thing you read is chronologically the last thing that happens because it's the only thing we've seen so far that takes place in the year of Glad.
Yeah, and there's a page in this section that has the calendar, like the subsidized years
Right.
that they're being sponsored by these corporations.
Mm. Okay. Joel was born and raised in Kentucky by a low pH chemist and his second wife. She sneaks into Molly's room and does some cocaine, describes the similarities of Oren as a lover and cocaine, says she prefers cocaine, makes her feel taken care of. Very good quote here I liked. It never made her feel about to be entered by something that didn't know she was there, yet was all about making her feel good anyway, coming in. Entertainment is blind. So yeah, I like the expanded use of drugs as entertainment, which she refers to overdose as too much fun, which I think is good. That would that might blunt some of the sadness of all the kids I went to high school with dying if we just started referring to it as too much fun instead of overdoses.
Yeah, I've been there, dude.
Mm-hmm. Says she prefers it in freebase form. Referred to James's too much fun as bourbon. Man after my own heart. Takes the cocaine and, quote, a little under 2 deliberate minutes from too much fun for anyone mortal to hope to endure. We get some detail porn as someone knocks on the door wearing an ascot, with the knock that you use when you specifically know somebody is in fact already in there, and the dimensions of the door, and somewhere in English majors, and he always loses me with that when he just does huge run-on sentences. That
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Joelle sits with knees to her chin, uprightly fetal, deveiled, the prettiest girl of all time. A man tries to enter the room as she vomits in the tub. And aside from a brief, weird description of Enfield, Massachusetts, that's our section today. Yeah, I'm liking some of this. I really hated the idea of the Madame Psychosis radio show because I felt like it was so far out there and it didn't try to explain its appeal at all. Like, oh yeah, she reads medical shit and people love it. Isn't that, wacky and deep? Like, not really. But the character herself, I'm really getting into. Would you say, again, this is somebody we just met. Is this somebody who is one of the big people when we discuss addiction? Is she one of the main characters that's told through?
Yeah. I mean, it would be her and Don Gately.
Mm.
Yeah, I think even Oren a little bit. I mean, yeah, like every character in this book is kind of dealing with some kind of addiction, whether it's drugs or food or sex or something. So
I
yeah,
guess
for sure.
even the Enfield kids, I guess you could say the competition has an addictive quality. Very much the always chasing that first great hit, but then having to consistently improve if you're ever gonna accomplish anything on it. So
Even like the tennis academy, just how hardcore they are about tennis.
Mm. Everybody in this is taking everything they do very, very seriously. I mean, even Mario seems, very obsessive with his film stuff. So
I mean, and that was kind of David Foster Wallace took himself way too seriously, and he wrote some great stuff. To be honest with you, I like this book. I don't know if it's his best work. I think he was a better essayist.
That's what I've enjoyed so far. What would you say? What would you say is his best work then, as somebody who's read more of it?
I think his most I'm trying to think because it's been a while since I've read his essays, but he's got some great ones. The one he wrote about John McCain when he was first running for president, like 2001. I think the original, when they republished it in the collection, they changed the title, but the original title of it is called Up Simba, and it's like he just pretty much breaks down the shift in American politics at that time, where because John McCain's whole platform at that time was no bullshit. It was like the no bullshit express.
Right.
And David Foster Wallace says, so he pretty much says, so this idea of no bullshit is just in itself another form of bullshit. Like, this is also fake. Like this,
right? Bullshit being marketed is not bullshit.
And yeah, and it kind of like predicts, in a way, predicts like what's happened with Trump, where it's like even Trump has like become this guy that everybody's like, hey, he tells it like it is, but
Ugh.
that's just another form of like horse shit being peddled to us. So I think that like that the essay about John McCain is really great. He's got there's one he wrote about David Lynch where he was like hanging out on the set of Lost Highway.
See, I need to read that because we've been on a big David Lynch kick in my household, so that might be a good one to get into.
Yeah, the essay about David Lynch. I think his biggest essay is the one about the cruise ship. It's called A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again,
which I first heard of because I believe it was a title of a Simpsons episode.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that, but yeah, that's a really good one. I would highly recommend the two essay collections. One is called A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again, which has that essay and several others, and then the other one is Consider the Lobster. I think those are my like two favorite works of his, are those essay collections.
Okay, yeah, because I've been talking to pad this podcast out a little bit, just because obviously if we're going through the book, it only has so long a shelf life. To pad it out a little bit, I wanted to start doing a side series of like footnote episodes where we go through his other works. So yeah, that'd be some good stuff to look into. All right, well, Dalton, I think we are done here. So
cool.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming in again. If you could tell us your plugs.
Yeah, listen to the Loud Boys available on iTunes, Stitcher. It's me, Robbie Goodwin, Joe Gorman, just shooting the shit every week. So subscribe to that. I'm going to be on a rooftop in Williamsburg, July 5th. I don't know where, so no reason to plug that because I don't have an address for it.
Well, hey, do we have you on social media? You got a handle? That'd be something you'd be posting it on?
Oh, yeah. Follow me on Twitter at newdalton69420. And then you can follow me on Instagram at saltydalty69420.
You got that branding down. 69420.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, dude, if that's all you need to get a trademark on it, I mean, that might be enough of a precedent. You might be sitting on gold there.
Yeah, it's really fun to say when people say, hey, plug your social media. And then I'm like, cool. I gotta do the 69420 plug.
Dude, one thing I absolutely love as a social meme, the fact that across the spectrum, that if anybody ever says the word 69, it is always expected that somebody will respond nice, no matter what it is. If we're reading an obituary, it's still cool to drop it in there. So
yeah, it is fun. That's just good, clean fun, man.
That's right. Good, clean, double oral sex fun. All right, Dalton, thanks for coming in. I am going to press stop now, but we can talk for several minutes still.